Good morning and a very warm welcome. This is the Breakfast Rundown on TV1. I'm Therunee Karunaratne. We're coming to you live from our Newsfirst studios here in Colombo. Well, this morning too, we are ready to bring to you details of all the top stories from here at home and around the world. Do stay tuned with us for the news in detail. Well, on to our top story this morning. President Karunaratne has instructed that the Sri Lanka Disaster Management Act be updated to suit the current conditions. This directive was given during the 14th session of the National Council for Disaster Management, which convened yesterday under the President's leadership.
The 14th session of the National Council for Disaster Management was held yesterday at the Presidential Secretariat under the leadership of President Karunaratne. This marks the first time the Council has convened in 7 years. The last meeting took place on the 5th April 2018, according to the Presidential Media Division. The National Council for Disaster Management was established under the Disaster Management Act No. 13 of 2005, following the urgent national need for a structured disaster response after the devastating tsunami in 2004. At the latest session, the National Disaster Management Plans and the National Emergency Operations Plan were presented and approved by the Council. Discussions also centered on current disaster risk reduction efforts in Sri Lanka, emerging trends and future plans. A key point raised was the need for a unified operational structure with centralized coordination to enhance disaster preparedness and response. Recognizing the increasing impact of climate change, the Council emphasized the urgent need to revise the existing Disaster Management Act to align with current realities and to better meet new and evolving challenges. The committee decided that the law must be modernized to suit present-day conditions. President Dissanayake also instructed officials to address financial constraints related to disaster response and relief measures. He directed the allocation of funds to resume stalled projects and proposed amendments to the financial provisions governing disaster management and compensation. Furthermore, the Council approved a proposal to establish a dedicated disaster management fund. President Dissanayake issued further instructions to expedite the identification of high-risk housing areas, ensure the safety of residents by relocating them where necessary, and review compensation payments. He proposed increasing the compensation amount granted by the government to affected households.
Now, the Export Development Board says that in light of US reciprocal tariff pressures, opportunities emerging in the European, Asian and other international markets have now been identified as part of efforts to diversify export markets. Its chairman Mangala Vijay Singh has stated that government officials and representatives from the export sector met yesterday to discuss strategies to counter the impact of the US tariff measures.
Chairman of the EDB, Mangala Vijay Singh, has stated that exporters were made aware of government-backed financial support mechanisms aimed at assisting them during this difficult period. The session also addressed technological adaptation strategies, innovation-driven approaches and both short and long-term trade policy responses, with a focus on ensuring the resilience and sustainability of Sri Lankan exports. Key government officials who delivered strategic briefings during the session included Dr. Harshana Surya Peruma, Secretary to the Ministry of Finance and Planning, J.M. Tilaka Jayasundara, Secretary to the Ministry of Industries and Enterprise Development, K.A. Vimalendra Raja, Secretary to the Ministry of Trade, Commerce, Food Security and Cooperative Development. The discussions took place against the backdrop of a recent US government announcement to reduce tariffs on certain imported goods from 30% to 20%, a change officially declared last Friday. The new executive order signed by the US President includes tariff revisions for 40 countries and came into effect starting today, according to a statement released by the White House.
Now, the Foreign Exchange Amendment Bill is scheduled to be passed in Parliament today during its second reading without debate.
According to Acting Director of Parliamentary Communications, M. Jayalat Pereira, the Foreign Exchange Bill is scheduled to be passed in Parliament today during its second reading without debate. The process is expected to take place from 11:30 a.m. to 12 noon. Following that, from 12 noon to 5:30 p.m, Parliament will engage in an adjournment debate on the current state of the national economy based on a motion brought forward by the ruling party.
As part of a special operation targeting crime, narcotics, illegal firearms and suspicious individuals and vehicles, 853 individuals were arrested the day before yesterday in connection with drug-related offences.
The crackdown also resulted in the arrest of 17 suspects directly linked to organized crimes and 380 individuals with outstanding arrest warrants. The operation extended to road safety enforcement with special attention given to highway violations. As part of this, 101 drunk drivers were apprehended on that day alone. Authorities also recovered 8 illegal firearms, including 7 locally manufactured guns and 1 foreign manufactured firearm, further highlighting the operation's focus on controlling the spread of illegal weapons. The ministry stated that these daily search and raid operations are being conducted as part of a broad effort to eradicate drugs from the country and to suppress organized criminal networks.
And in your weather forecast for today, the Met Department says a few showers will occur in the western and Sabaragamulo provinces and in the Nuwara Eliya, Kandy, Galle and Mathura districts.
Showers or thunder showers may occur at a few places in Uva province and in Batiklo, Ampara and Mullaitivu districts after 1 p.m. The general public is requested to take adequate precautions to minimize damages caused by temporary localized strong winds and lightning during thunder showers. Meanwhile, issuing a warm weather advisory, the Met Department says that the heat index, the temperature felt on human body, is likely to increase up to caution level at some places in north central, eastern provinces and in Jaffna, Kilinochchi, Mullaitivu, Vaunia, Munaragala and Hambantota districts.
On to news overseas for this morning. US President Donald Trump has issued an executive order hitting India with an additional 25% tariff over its purchases of Russian oil. That will raise the total tariff on Indian imports to the United States to 50%, among the highest rates imposed by the United States.
The new rate will come into effect in 21 days, so on 27th August, according to the executive order. A response from India's foreign ministry on Wednesday said Delhi had already made clear its stance on imports from Russia and reiterated that the tariff is unfair, unjustified and unreasonable. The US president had earlier warned he would raise levies, saying India doesn't care how many people in Ukraine are being killed by the Russian war machine. On Wednesday, the White House said in a statement that the Russian Federation's actions in Ukraine pose an ongoing threat to US national security and foreign policy, necessitating stronger measures to address the national emergency. It said India's imports of Russian oil undermine US efforts to counter Russia's activities in Ukraine. It added that the US will determine which other countries import oil from Russia and will recommend further actions to the president as needed. Oil and gas are Russia's biggest exports, and Moscow's biggest customers include China, India and Turkey. Russia is now the biggest seller of oil to India, accounting for more than 35% of India's overall supplies, according to global commodities data platform Kepler.
And in more international news, US President Donald Trump has said there is a good chance he could meet the Russian and Ukrainian leaders following what he described as a very good talk between his envoy and Vladimir Putin earlier in the day. Asked at the White House whether the two leaders had agreed to such a summit, the US president said there was a very good prospect but did not give further details.
The Kremlin earlier issued a vague statement about the talks between Putin and Steve Witkoff, with a foreign policy aide saying the two sides had exchanged signals as part of constructive talks in Moscow. The meeting came days before Trump's deadline for Russia to agree to a ceasefire in Ukraine or face new sanctions. Ukrainian President Zelensky meanwhile said he had also spoken to Trump about Witkoff's visit, with European leaders also on the call. Zelensky has been warning that Russia would only make serious moves towards peace if it began to run out of money. Trump has said Russia could face hefty sanctions or see secondary sanctions imposed against all those who trade with it if it doesn't take steps to end the war. Wednesday's discussions between Putin and Witkoff appeared cordial despite Trump's mounting irritation with the lack of progress in negotiations between Moscow and Kiev. Shortly after Witkoff's departure from Moscow, the White House said Trump had signed an executive order imposing an additional 25% tariff on India for buying Russian oil. The tariff would come into force on the 27th August. The US president has accused India of not caring how many people in Ukraine are being killed by the Russian war machine. Expectations are muted for a settlement by Friday, and Russia has continued its large-scale air attacks on Ukraine despite Trump's threats of sanctions.
Well, that's a wrap of this morning's edition of the Breakfast Rundown on TV1. I'm Therunee Karunaratne. Thank you for joining us this morning. Do join us tomorrow as well for more of the very latest from here at home and around the world. Take care. Have a wonderful day ahead.